Today's business, another mini. First, I want to thank Vestar for sending me this new mini to review. Thank you, Vestar. We'll take good care of it. The second is, I want to talk about minis really fast. So minis versus longboards basically have two main advantages. One is portability. It's just a lot less board to tote around. It doesn't get in the way as much. It's easier to carry. You don't have it rubbing against your side if you're carrying it like a longboard. So the portability is definitely there, and that's one of the main appeals of mini boards. The second is maneuverability. Now, because you generally get a kicktail and it rides a little bit more like a traditional skateboard, you can maneuver it a lot more easily than you can a longboard. So those are the two main benefits of having a mini. The drawbacks, though, are one is just comfort, overall comfort and cruising comfort. So it tends to be a little less comfortable than a longboard with, say, a flexi deck. And it's just because they tend to have more vibration and you feel the road a little bit more, just because there's not as much deck to actually absorb a lot of that vibration. These boards tend to go a little bit slower than the longboards. It's just not as big a platform, and it's not as big a stable platform at high speed. So you tend to get a little bit less stability at high speed. But if those two things aren't a problem for you, then minis can be the right choice. So let's take a look at how this mini stacks up with others. Now, in my most recent video, I reviewed the Backfire Mini, the new one, and I compared it to the Boosted Mini X. So let's see how this Vestar Mini stacks up against those two. But first, let's see what you get in the box. A board charge, a remote charging cord, hex wrench, standard T-tool, and this Hobbywing remote, which you've seen more than once. So overall, first impression of this board is quite good. They've definitely taken care in terms of styling. Some will say it looks a lot like the Boosted Mini X or Mini S, and it does resemble it in terms of the styling on top. But in terms of the overall product, it's quite well made, and it seems like there's been quite an attention to detail for a board that is, in the middle, kind of lower middle price range for these types of boards. So I think you're getting overall a pretty good quality. It makes a pretty good impression. It has 83mm wheels. On the hub version, you can get up to 90s on the belt version. This is the hub version. It's pretty clean and minimal on the underside. There's just not a lot of clutter on the underside, which is nice. This particular board has the Sanyo 7 amp hour battery, which has a maximum range of 17 miles. The claimed top speed of this board is 26 miles an hour, which is plenty fast, and frankly, that speed is about as fast as I will ever want to go on a mini board. Anything above that, and it just feels a little bit dangerous. And it just doesn't feel like it has the stability of that. But you're getting pretty much maximum speed for minis on this board at 26 miles an hour. It feels solidly built. It's definitely got some weight to it, but it feels solid. And overall, it's a simple and good design. Now, the remote has 3 speed modes. Kind of a low, medium, and high, and you have the ability to see the battery power with the push of a button. So in terms of non-performance items, I think this board checks a lot of boxes. I think you're going to be happy with the way it looks, with the quality of it, especially for the price point. So I think from a non-performance perspective, this board kind of checks a lot of boxes and is a pretty good value, at least on the outside. But let's see how this thing performs. So first up on performance, let's talk about the ESC. Now this does have a Hobbywing ESC, which is definitely a good ESC. It's very smooth, it's very predictable. There might be some that are a little bit better, but to me, this is one of the best ESCs that you can get out there if you want a nice, smooth ride. So in terms of ESC, this thing checks the box on that. But I rode it for 13 miles straight at an average speed of 14.5 miles an hour. So I got 13 miles of range. They advertise up to 17 miles. I weigh 175 pounds, and I was riding it at a pretty good clip when I was under power. So that's a really good range, I think, for a mini board. 13 miles, and you're probably not going to ride this board for 13 consecutive miles. You're probably going to ride it for a couple miles here and there, carry it around and ride it for a couple more miles. So I think 13 miles is plenty of range for this mini, and I think it's actually a really good range. So now let's take a look at the 200-meter sprint and see how this thing accelerates. So in terms of acceleration, it's definitely a couple ticks faster than the Backfire Mini and had a top speed of 25 miles an hour over 200 meters. Both the Backfire and this Vestar are quite a bit faster than the boosted. And again, the boosted boards aren't known for range or big speed, but they are known for quality and other things. So these boards definitely have the edge on the boosted for speed and for range. So this board, if you want to go fast on a Mini, this is a pretty good option. It's 25, 26 miles an hour. I actually hit 26 miles an hour with a bit of an extended run, so it's definitely got the top speed. Now, let's take a look at my Mini test, which is the Mini Gut. Now, those of you that follow this channel know that there's a 2-mile hill that we call the Gut, and I take longboards up the Gut to see how they perform. The Minis, I don't take up the big Gut, so I have a Mini Gut, which is about a tenth of a mile, but it's definitely a steep hill. And let's see how this board compares to the Backfire and the boosted Mini X on the Mini Gut. So it's a little bit slower than both on the Mini Gut. Now, the Backfire performed really well up this hill. It actually surprised me how well it climbed that hill. Even better than the boosted X, which should, some people would think would have a lot more torque with the belt drives, whereas the Backfire has hub motors. This board also has hub motors, and it just struggled a little bit on the very steep parts. It was noticeable at the back half of the Mini Gut, which is the steepest part of that hill, that it just had a little bit of a struggle then, which is, I think, accounts for the difference in time. But it gets you up the hill. Now, it's kind of, the trade-off seems to be a little bit of power, a little bit of hill climbing ability for a slightly higher top speed versus, say, the Backfire. So, there's a little bit of a trade-off. Now, it'll get you up the hill, and it did just fine, but it's just a little tick slower on the hill. So overall, I think this board is a good option. It stacks up well in terms of performance items, as you saw. It's got a lot of good non-performance characteristics as well. It's definitely portable and rides well, and I think it stacks up well versus the other two boards. So if you're in the market for a mid-range Mini, I think you should consider this. Now, this is the hub version, not the belt version. They do have a belt drive version, so if you're interested, you could check that out. I think it has slightly different performance characteristics, but it's probably pretty similar to this board. Now, ordinarily, this board in particular, which is hubs and the bigger battery, costs $579. But because it is Thanksgiving and Black Friday week, Vestar's having a promotion. So if you enter the code BFMini at the time of checkout, you can save 15% on this board, and I think the other Mini boards that they have as well. So that would take this from $579 to under $500. And it starts to look a lot better at the cheaper you get. So under $500, I think, is quite a good value. So if you're in the market right now and you're curious about this board and you're interested in this board, it's a good time to buy this board. So with that being said, it is Thanksgiving week at the time of this video, and it's time to give thanks. And I just want to let everybody know that I'm thankful for the support of this channel. I'm thankful to all of you that watch and interact with my videos and subscribe to my channel. If you're new here, consider subscribing. There's a lot more stuff coming. And, it's the holiday season, and maybe there'll be some interesting stuff coming down the pike. So I appreciate everybody's support. I'm thankful. Hopefully you guys are all thankful too. Don't eat too much on Thursday, and I'll see you in the next video.